What is up? You are watching week 4 of the Lax Factor College Lacrosse Saturday recap show. Order was kind of restored to the lacrosse world this weekend. We saw some teams that badly needed wins. Some of our traditional blue bloods like Virginia and Hopkins actually get those wins that they needed. We saw High Point lose their first game of the season. And other than that, we pretty much saw things go as we expected them to. So let's get into it and see what happened. Navy hosted Maryland, and after a very close game, hard-fought game by both teams, Maryland was able to use a fourth quarter burst to eventually top Navy by a score of 14-9. It was only a matter of time before Maryland pulled away. The game was close all game long. Navy fought valiantly, but Justin Shockey winning 16 of 23 faceoffs, and the wing play for Maryland on the faceoff draws was incredible. When you get that many possessions, your offense is eventually going to start clicking. So Maryland, close game. They use a 4-goal spurt to start the fourth quarter, thanks in large part to winning those faceoffs, and that's what ended up being the difference maker in the game. That's where Maryland gets their spread to get this victory. Logan Wisnauskas had a career day. He was good for 3 goals and 5 assists for the Terps. Navy didn't have an answer for him. And Louis Dubik, he scores his first ever 5-goal game for the Terps as well. Excellent game out of both guys. And this week, we kind of see the opposite. What we had seen was Maryland get leads earlier in the season and then allow teams to chip away at those leads and get back into games. And this was the opposite. It was a close, hard-fought game from the beginning, and Maryland was able to gain momentum to start the fourth quarter and actually bury a team for the first time all season. So Maryland played better defensively. They had some decent goalkeeping play, but at the face-off X, that was key. Hell of a job by Shockey, and the Terps get another huge win. Hopkins sitting at 0-2 and UNC sitting at 3-0. Hopkins needed this win badly. I had picked against them, thinking that their defense had played so horribly so far up to this point this season that there was no way they were going to stop the freight train that had been the UNC offense up to this point. I was wrong. Hopkins pulls out the 1-goal victory. They had a lead late and then allowed UNC to kind of chip back into it, but it wasn't enough in the end. So Hopkins gets that much-needed win. They get back to 1-2. UNC drops to 3-1, but it was a great game played in terrible field conditions. Joey Epstein, the freshman sensation for Hopkins, he factored late with a goal and an assist at a time when North Carolina was starting to eke back into the game a little bit. He finishes the day 2 goals and 2 assists. Kyle Marr goes for 2 goals and an assist. And Cole Williams, the other usual suspect, he was good for 2 assists on the day. Interesting with Epstein, that's his second week in a row of leading Hopkins in scoring. Last week he shared that with Marr. They both put up 6 points. This week Epstein goes 2-2 and leads the team on his own. North Carolina was led on the day by Era Atayan. He had 3 goals on the day, and Justin Anderson, Nicky Solomon, and Jacob Kelly were all good for 1 goal and 1 assist for North Carolina. Another game that I picked wrong, Notre Dame at Richmond. Richmond jumped out to a 3-goal lead early, and Notre Dame kept battling back. At 5 different occasions, Richmond had extended their lead to 3 goals. Notre Dame kept battling back to get to within a goal each time. And Richmond was just too much in the end. They played excellent. Ryan Lynchberry, he ends up putting up 3 goals for Richmond, and that was all she wrote. 9-8 final score for Richmond. They make me wrong once again this week, but it was a great game by the Spiders. As stated, Ryan Lynchberry was good for 3 goals. Ryan Lee scored 2 goals and an assist, and Tate Gallagher was good for 2 goals in the win. Jack Rusbolt, the keeper for Richmond, made 11 saves on the day versus just 8 goals against. Notre Dame was led by Brian Costabile, Brian Willits, and Connor Morins, 2 goals each. Connor Morins' goals came late in the fourth quarter as Notre Dame got back to within a goal late, but they were unable to make anything happen as 2 of Costabile's shots late go wide of the cage, well wide of the cage at that, and Richmond holds on for the huge victory at home over an ACC opponent. Undefeated Ohio State dropped Bucknell to 1-3 on the season while notching their 4th win of the year. They win by a score of 16-13. It wasn't actually as close as it looked. Jack Myers got absolutely silly on the day for the Buckeyes. He's good for 7 goals and 1 assist in the win. Kobe Smith also factored heavily for the Buckeyes. He goes for 3 goals and 2 helpers. Jack Jasinski goes for a hat trick, and Trey LeClaire is good for 2 goals and a dish. Will York continued his solid play for Bucknell. He's good for 5 goals and a helper, and Tommy Sopko was good for a hat trick and an assist in the loss for Bucknell. Brendan Sunday had a huge Saturday for Towson as they beat Georgetown by a score of 14-8. I had predicted that Sunday and teammate Brody McLean would each have huge days. I was kind of right. Sunday tore it up. He goes for 4 goals and 5 assists. Brody McLean is good for 2 goals and 2 assists. And Timmy Monahan also factored with a hat trick for Towson. Towson now improves to 3-0. Another big factor in the Towson win was their goalie, Tyler Canto. He goes for 14 saves on the day against just 8 goals against. So Towson, they need him to continue to play like that, but it's sitting at 3-0. They're happy. But Georgetown's going to be okay. They're still 2-1. They had, like I had said in the preview show, they hadn't really played anybody yet, but they will. And at 2-1, that's not a terrible place for Georgetown to be sitting. So the Hoyas look decent against a quality opponent in Towson, but Towson wins the day thanks to Sunday and Canto's huge days. Yale hosting Penn State promised to be a slugfest, and I admittedly picked the Nittany Lions to pull this one out. We learned 2 things in this game. Penn State's offense is scary good and ridiculously efficient. We also learned that T.D. Erlin is a goddamn animal as he won this game for Yale flat out. He goes 25 of 31 on the day from the faceoff X, totally dominating every attempt geared towards cooling him off. With the possession battle being won by Yale, Jackson Morrill was able to tally 2 goals and 5 helpers on the day. Morrill looked great, and he's looked good in both games this season, and he's definitely poised to fill the shoes of Ben Reeves. Matt Gaudet factored in the win with a hat-trick for Yale, as did teammate Brendan Rooney. Both played well off ball, both ended up scoring key goals when Yale needed them most. Grant Ament continued his hot streak. He was good for 2 goals and 7 dishes on the day. Chris Fake struggled with him. The Yale defense struggled with him in general. Considering how many faceoffs Erlin won, that's not a great defensive showing out of Yale, so they obviously haven't figured it all out yet on the offensive side of the ball. Mac O'Keefe was also good for 5 goals for Penn State. So despite the possession battle being completely lopsided in favor of Yale, at least at the faceoff X, Penn State proved that between the shot clock and just being ridiculously efficient, they can put points up no matter what happens, and Yale proved that they can win games because of T.D. Erlin, but their defense still has some work to do. Loyola took their perfect record on the road to face 2-1 Rutgers, and it was the Pat Spencer show early, and it was the Pat Spencer show often in the win for Loyola. Pat Spencer was good for 5 goals and 2 assists on the day, including a ridiculous highlight reel goal where he saw himself leaping into the air and sticking one past the Rutgers goalkeeper Max Edelman. Kevin Lindley also factored with 4 goals on the day for Loyola, and teammate Chase Scanlon, he put up a hat-trick. Jacob Stover was incredible in cage once again for Loyola. He goes for 18 saves versus just 7 goals against. Rutgers had a very difficult time figuring Stover out on the day. Virginia, they were another team that was badly in need of a win. You can't play in the ACC and drop a bunch of non-conference games and still make the tournament. It just doesn't work that way with the ACC, as brutal as it is. Ian Laviano is good for 4 goals and an assist on the day. Teammate Matt Moore, 2 goals and 3 helpers, and Michael Kraus, 2-2. Virginia's usual suspects showed. Dox Aitken, he even puts up 2 goals in the win. Michael Sowers for Princeton. He's an incredible attackman. He's good for 4 goals and 2 dishes on the day. And Charlie Durbin scores 4 goals for Princeton. Princeton drops to 1-1, and UVA improves to 2-2. And believe me, they needed to be 2-2. Sadly, we have a lot of action that we can't cover in the recap show because there's a bunch of games on Sunday. The big one, Cuse hosting Army at the Dome. So be sure to check back either tonight or by tomorrow morning. We'll have the highlights and a recap for that game up. As always, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you are dinged every time we put out a new video.